Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wellness Week Day 4. This is our last session of today. So if you want to start by throwing anything you're excited to learn in the chat, that would be perfect, and we'll get started in just a minute here. All right. So let me go over a couple housekeeping items while we wait for a few more people to come in and join. If you see at the bottom of your screen, there's a chat button. Since this is webinars, we won't be able to see your faces, but you can still interact with us through the chat. If you just go ahead and change your typing to all panelists and attendees, then everyone will be able to see your messages. Otherwise, they will just come to the panelists here. There's also a Q&A button at the bottom that you can use to send in any questions you have throughout the presentation. We'll be doing a bit of a Q&A at the end, so feel free to send any questions you have throughout. We also have closed captions available today. So you'll see at the bottom of your screen a live transcript button. You can click on that and either select to show or hide those closed captionings, whatever you prefer today. We will also be sending out a survey at the end of the session, and we really appreciate any feedback you have about this session and Wellness Week in general. Also, if you're a Horizon resident, filling out the survey is how you will be entered to win a $50 grocery gift card. So make sure you stay tuned. Che will be sending the link in the chat at the very end, and it should pop up in your browser as well once you leave the meeting. So with that, we'll get started. Welcome, Horizon Wellness Week. We only have one day left. So make sure you tell your neighbors, friends, and family. We've got today's session live now, and we've got 3 more exciting sessions happening tomorrow. For those that aren't familiar with Horizon, we are an affordable housing provider here in Calgary, and we serve just over 1,200 residents. And we know it's been a really tough year for everybody. And we wanted to find a way to bring wellness directly into the homes of as many people as we could. Wellness is so important at this time, and there's so many different elements to it, from financial wellness to safety to mental health. Wellness is really encompassing of so many things, which is why we turned this into an entire week full of events. And so we work with lots of different service agencies. There's lots of volunteers here in Calgary that have such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to wellness that we wanted to bring as many people together as we could to go on this wellness journey together. And so I know we're excited about today's session, so I am going to pass it off to my colleague Che, who is going to introduce the session and take things away from here.
Hey everyone, thanks so much, Moira, for the introduction. Well, welcome to Personal Safety Tips. This is a session where our presenters will help us build personal safety habits through environmental awareness and trusting our instincts. I want to introduce our panelists today. They are AJ and Jeff. They're community volunteers. AJ is an active volunteer in the local community who supports women fleeing domestic violence and prostitution. She uses her own experiences to connect with women in need. AJ wrote and published a book in 2019 titled Finding Her Stuff, which takes a look at healing after experiencing abuse. If you're interested in learning more, when I finish this intro, I'm going to throw the link to that book in the chat. And then we have Jeff, who has been teaching about personal safety to adults and children across Alberta for 10 years. He enjoys guiding a discussion and looking for insights to help make everyone's lives a little safer. With that, I will turn it over to our panelists, and I'm really looking forward to this session.
Well, hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to this session. I'm glad to be here. Personal safety is obviously something AJ and I are very passionate about. And, it's a topic that we often in our personal lives try to avoid because it scares us a bit, and we don't always like to talk about it. So I think it's good on you for being here today and being brave enough to attend the session and to talk about something personal to you, which is your safety. That being said, we want to make sure that you understand right off the bat that personal safety is just that. It's specific to you. And so we want to make sure that when you're thinking about these things today, you're thinking about ideas, and when we go through the tips today, how they can work for you personally. because there's no one size fits all for safety plans. These are plans that we are going to put in place and help you develop today that will be tailored to your lifestyle and what you're comfortable with and what works for you as an individual. So that being said, we're going to jump right in. We have what I consider the four safety tips that will help you to be more comfortable in unfamiliar situations, to avoid situations that may put your safety at risk, and that can help you get through situations where you're feeling a little unfamiliar or maybe not so confident. These tips, I believe, if you actually follow these four tips, you actually won't get yourself into a situation where you are unsafe. Following these tips, I strongly believe you will avoid situations where you're put in harm's way. So with that being said, we want to get into the first tip that we have today, which is being aware. Being aware is, there's a lot of different layers to being aware and what awareness means. The first one that we want to really talk about is awareness of your surroundings. So when we're talking about your surroundings, what does that entail? Well, it entails, where are you right now? So when you're out and about, taking a look around as to where you're at. What's the address that you're at? What's the location? What are the cross streets? What are maybe some of the key buildings or structures around that you could identify so that you could tell someone where you are if you needed to? It's very important, especially if we're in a place that we're not really familiar with, that's new to us. We've gone somewhere new that isn't really that familiar. It's really key to be aware of those surroundings. What are the exit areas? Where could I go if I needed to get some help? And how would I describe where I am to someone if I needed to? Also, part of being aware is being aware of who's around. So who is around you right now? Whether the people that are in your surrounding, not only who's around, but what are they doing and do they fit that situation? So if you're out and about in the public, in the community, and you're, let's say, for instance, you're waiting for a bus at the bus stop, and you notice someone or other people are around, do they look like they're waiting for the bus as well? Do they look like they're dressed to go somewhere on the bus? Is this someone that appears to be doing what you're doing? So we want to make sure that we're aware of these things. In order to be aware of those, where you are, who's around you, what are they doing, that means you have to look up and look around, lift your head up. And I know that it's sometimes for us as human beings, when we're feeling uncomfortable, when we're not in a familiar situation or surrounding, we try to kind of hide because we're a little bit nervous or anxious or scared. And in hiding, what we do is we try to make ourselves small, and we don't want to look at people, and we don't want to look around, and we're looking down so that we think that people won't notice us. If you can think about children when they're young, maybe you've done this as a child yourself. When you cover your eyes as a child and you can't see anybody, well, then you think nobody can see you. And this is kind of a way I like to kind of relate it to adults, is as adults, when we get nervous or anxious or we're in something unfamiliar, we become like that child who tries to disappear by covering their eyes, and they think, well, if I can't see them, they can't see me. But in fact, what we're doing when we do that is we're actually making ourselves more visible. Because if there is anyone who maybe is looking for someone to victimize or is looking for someone to take advantage of, well, if you don't have your head up, if you're not looking around, if you're trying to hide in plain sight, you're actually becoming more visible to them. They're noticing you. Everybody in the area can notice you. So part of your awareness is that ability to lift your head up, look around your surroundings, make eye contact with people, recognize where you are and who's around you and what they're doing. In doing that, when you're looking around, you're also going to be feeding off of those cues that you're getting from your surrounding. So while your eyes are looking around your surroundings and you're taking in who's there and where you're at, you're also going to be taking in that, and it's going to give you some sense of what's going on. And we call this your gut feeling, how do you feel right now? Part of being awareness is recognizing what you're feeling. Are you getting any cues from the people you're around that are giving you a bad feeling? Or are they making you nervous? That awareness is also, how are you projecting yourself to others right now? So what are you showing the people that are around? We all know what confidence looks like. And when we're confident, we stand up tall and we're looking and making eye contact with people. But when we're not confident, we're nervous, we're feeling anxious, and our head is down and we're looking down, we're projecting that to the people that are around us. And when you're in a situation that you're feeling uncomfortable, anxious, you don't want to portray that to people that are around for your safety. We want to portray that we are confident and we feel secure and comfortable, even maybe when we're not. And we're going to talk a little bit later on how we do that. But part of that awareness is, how do I look to other people? How am I presenting to the world? And how do I want to present? So listening to your intuition, presenting yourself how you want people to see you. Human interaction is very much about treating people how we see them. So if I see someone who looks really confident and looks really self-assured, well, then that's how I'm going to treat and deal with them. If I see someone that looks maybe nervous or anxious or doesn't have a lot of confidence, well, then that's how we're going to interact. And when I'm talking about your personal safety, the safest way we want to project ourselves is someone who is unafraid, who is feeling confident, and who can handle the situation that they're in. And that's how we want to look to the world. So just for a reminder that being aware of our surroundings, aware of the people that are in it, where am I, where can I go if I need help, awareness of how I'm presenting myself, and then really paying attention to your intuition, really paying attention to your instincts. Our bodies have developed over time where our bodies pick up on things that we're not consciously aware of, that we don't actually think, but our eyes pick up on things, our ears pick up on things, we pick up on people's body language, we pick up on things we hear, and that gives our bodies those cues and those red flags when maybe something's not right. And we really need to pay attention to that and not ignore that or push it down or push it off to the side, but pay attention to those red flags that you get, which is that bad feeling in your stomach that you might feel, where just something doesn't feel right. You might not know what it is. You might not know why you're feeling that way, but it doesn't matter. When you're talking about your personal safety, you can try to figure that out later, but we need to make sure we're paying attention to it and we're not ignoring it. Okay, so our first tip is be aware. Okay, and then we're going to go into our second tip, which is we want to make sure that we have a clear bottom line. Okay, and by a clear bottom line, I mean, what is it that you're comfortable with? What is your comfort zone? We're all different. We all have our own levels of comfort. We all have our own levels of what we're okay with people saying to us and with people doing to us. And we're all different in our safety bubble, our personal space bubble, how close we want to let people get to us or not. it's all individual, but we need to recognize for ourselves, what is our comfort zone? What am I comfortable with? And then, I need to be clear with people on what that bottom line is. So first we need to recognize what our bottom line is, what we're good with, and then we need to be clear about that. And clear means letting people know what our comfort zone is. So if you're standing somewhere in public and a person who maybe you don't know, you've never met before, comes walking up to you and gets too close to you, gets into that comfort zone that you're not feeling okay with it, you're not comfortable. We need to be able to be clear with that person that's walked up to us that that's not okay. And now, again, this is all individualistic. This is individual. This is for you, your personal safety plan. You might not be a person that's okay with or feels comfortable with verbalizing that to another person. You might not feel comfortable saying to someone, hey, you know what? You're standing too close to me and I don't feel comfortable. That might not be something you're willing to do, and that's okay. But there's other things we can do, like we can just move ourselves. We might have to step away and give ourselves our own comfort zone, our own space, so they may recognize that you've moved, so we weren't very comfortable with that. And that's your way of being clear with them that this is where I'm okay with. That's the same thing with how we're comfortable with what people say to us. We want to be clear with people when they're using language or saying something to us that we're just not okay with, we're not comfortable with. We need to be able to express that to them so that it can stop. Now, again, you may not be comfortable with expressing that verbally, but you can use nonverbal ways of doing that. Even putting up your hand to someone is a very clear indication that you want them to stop doing what they're doing. Removing yourself from the situation is also a way of being clear with what your bottom line is. Our bottom lines, though, what we have to keep in mind always is our bottom line is only as good as we're willing to defend. And by defend, I don't mean necessarily getting physical and getting into an altercation with someone. What I mean is when you express to someone what your bottom line is, and if they don't respect that, if they don't listen to that, then we have to be willing to do something to fix that. So if you're standing there and someone walks up too close to you for your personal comfort, well, and if you've expressed to them, excuse me, I'm not very comfortable with how close you're standing, would you mind just stepping back? And they don't respect that. Let's say they say no, or they don't move. Now they have shown to you right there and then that your bottom line is not something they're going to listen to. So we have to be willing and able to fix that. And that can look like many different things, and we're going to talk about in our next section what that can be. But our bottom line, we need to be willing and able to defend it. Otherwise, it's not really a bottom line. It's just something we're saying, but it's just not a bottom line. We also have to remember these bottom lines, they will change depending on the situation we're in. If you're at home, with your loved ones and people you're comfortable with, well, your bottom line is pretty small. Your personal safety bubble might be really, really small because the people you're around, you're very comfortable with, and it's okay that they get really close to you or you have, conversations with them. However, you might move into a different situation outside your home, maybe in public, maybe at work, wherever you may be, and that now your safety zone, your safety bubble gets a little bigger and wider. And we have to recognize that at different times, our bottom line will change. It will transition in and out, and it might get bigger or smaller, and we want to recognize that. So part of that awareness is, when we go back to your awareness, is where am I Is this a place I'm comfortable with? Is this a place I'm familiar with? Are these people I'm comfortable with? Are these people that I'm familiar with? And if so, well, then maybe our safety bubble, our personal safety zone is a little bit bigger and expanded, and our bottom line is a little different. But now I'm transitioning and I'm going out of that comfortable zone and I'm moving to somewhere else. And now my bottom line is going to change and it's going to shift. And so we have to be adaptable. We want to try as best we can to recognize these different zones for ourselves where we have different levels of comfort, and we want to adapt our bottom lines to the situation that we're in and be willing to be clear with people about that in some way, whether it's verbally telling people or giving them physical cues by us adjusting ourselves to our physical environment. So remembering that defending your bottom line is very, very important to you. So then we go into our a third tip, which is having a plan. Okay. Now, in life, we plan out a great deal of our day. Our day is pretty planned out. We make plans for when we're going to get up, what we're going to eat for breakfast, how we're going to get to work. Most of us have routines, and we have a plan for our day in and day out. However, one of the things that we often don't plan is our safety. We don't make plans for our safety, but it's really important that we do. In schools and in workplaces, work environments, there's plans in place for if there's emergencies. They do fire drills in schools, and places of employment will have drills for where to go and where to muster up if there's something that happens. Well, we as individuals, we need to think about that for ourselves as well. So when we're out there and we're being aware and we have these bottom lines, if someone doesn't respect my bottom line, what's my plan? How am I going to deal with this? Part of having a plan is recognizing what are those things that you do routinely. If you go to school or you go to work a certain way every day, or you have routines that you do on a consistent basis, well, while you're out doing those, you should be thinking to yourself, what's my plan if something happens to me while I'm walking to work, or while I'm walking to school, or while I'm walking to a friend's place, or while I'm traveling on a bus? What's my plan? Where can I go if I needed to get some help? What are those places that have people in them? Because part of our plan needs to be, if you need assistance, if you need help, you need other people. Okay. So we want to be thinking about that as we're going through our day. Is what is my plan for if I'm going to work? What is my plan if I'm going to school? What is my plan for if I'm coming home? What is my plan if I'm at home? Now, the beautiful part about the way we are as human beings is that we don't need to think about this every second of every day. We have our routines, and we can make a plan for whatever specific routine you have. You can make a plan for what you would do while you're on your route to work, what you would do to get your help, and then you only have to think about that one time. Because if something happens while you're going through that routine, our brains, our bodies will pull that plan out what we thought about, and we have something to do. When we're talking about our personal safety, one of the last things we want to do is to freeze. Okay? Freezing and panicking is not what we want you to do if something is happening where somebody is physically trying to harm you or doing something to you that you're not okay with. The last thing we want to do is to freeze up and not be able to take any action. So having a plan, what that does is that prevents us from freezing. It gives us what we are afraid of as human beings is the unknown. That's when we're really our most vulnerable, and really that's what causes us the most fear is the unknown. We don't know what to do if something happens. But if we have a plan, that fear will dissipate. So if you're going to someplace new, if you're going to a situation you're not that familiar with, making a plan for how you're going to get there and what you might do if something happens along the way will remove that, maybe that anxious feeling or that fear you might have of going to that situation. And it allows you to relax. And then if something were to happen, having that plan in your mind will stop you from freezing, from panicking, and becoming unable to affect what it is you need to do. Okay, so as we work through these and we have our awareness and then we have our bottom line, if for example, someone walks up and they're too close, and I keep going back to that because it's an easy one for us to imagine, right? We're in a public place and someone approaches us and they approach us either too closely or whatever they're saying is making us uncomfortable. And we have that bottom line as to what personally we're okay with. Part of your plan needs to be, how are you going to address that person and let them know that whatever they're doing or saying is not okay with you? So thinking about for yourself, knowing yourself, am I okay with verbally saying something to that person? Or do I need to just do something else physically? Like, do I need to step back and move myself so that I'm more comfortable? And what are we going to do? Part of when we talked about having a clear bottom line is the willingness to defend it. So part of your plan has to be, well, how am I going to defend my bottom line if someone doesn't listen or someone doesn't take the cue that I'm not comfortable with how close they are to me or saying whatever they're saying? So for example, if I'm standing in a public place and someone walks up to me and they're really close and they're just in my personal space and I'm not comfortable with it, and I'm also maybe not comfortable with saying something to them for whatever reason. Maybe I'm just not the kind of person that feels okay with saying, telling that person to step back. So if I step back myself or I move myself to give myself that distance, and then that person steps in again close to me, well, they've just given me a sign that they're not respecting my bottom line. And so part of my plan is now, how do I defend that bottom line? Because if I just take another step over and they move in closer, and then we could just keep doing this over and over and repeating that. What is my plan now if they're not respecting my bottom line? Do I have to now remove myself from that situation and just leave? Do I have to, if I'm standing on the sidewalk, do I have to cross the street? What is it that I'm going to do in that particular situation to fix that for myself? And that's what that personal safety plan, it's personal to you. What are you going to do to fix that for yourself? Okay. What I want to talk about too is the perception of sometimes in our safety plans, one of the parts of the plan that I often hear is, well, we're going to call 911. Now, calling 911 is something that a lot of us have learned growing up. That's what you do in an emergency. If you need help, you call 911. And that it is a great tool to have for your toolbox, your safety toolbox. However, what I want you to think about, and I want you to recognize, is that if someone is physically trying to harm you or is physically getting in your space and you feel unsafe, calling 911 isn't going to stop that action right then and there. Okay. When we call 911, what is going to happen is there's going to be a response time from whoever's coming, the police or whomever. So we want to recognize that calling 911 in a situation where somebody is trying to physically harm you is not the immediate solution to that. And so while you may need to, or you will probably likely call 911 after you get yourself to a safe place, I don't want you thinking that that's my plan. That's my only part of my plan, is that I'm just going to call 911, because that's not going to stop that action right there. And what we want you to do is to remove yourself from whatever is happening so that you can get to a safe place and get the help that you need. And then we can call 911. So when part of our tips for part of your plan is recognizing what safe places are for you and recognizing where we need to go in order to get help if we need it. So if part of your plan is, if something's happening, is you're going to leave, you're going to go get help, what does that look like for you? Where are we actually going? So when you're planning out your safety, you really want to think about what that looks like. So if you're on a route that you take quite often, part of your plan should be recognizing where are those places that I can go to? Because what we're looking for when we're talking about getting to a safe place, what we're looking for is a place that has people. We want to find other people. Because when we're in a situation where we may be in danger or something is happening to us, what we know is that our bodies do things to protect us. So there's something called a fight or flight response. You may have heard of this, but what this is your body physically will do things that you can't control to help you stay safe and to survive. So what your body will actually do is it will take the blood in your body and it will push all the blood to your vital organs. So when you're in danger and your body senses that you're in danger, your body will then rush the blood to your vital organs. Those vital organs are like your brain, your heart, your lungs, the organs that your body absolutely needs to survive. So things like your fingers, your toes, your arms and your legs, people can survive without those. So the blood rushes away from those, which means it makes doing certain things very difficult. So if all the blood's rushing away from your hands, you lose what we call the dexterity in your fingers. So doing little things like picking up a cell phone and dialing 911 become very difficult because we don't have those fine motor skills, that dexterity, because it's gone away from us because our body's trying to protect us. So we also will get adrenaline that rushes through our bodies. And when adrenaline rushes through your body, the side effect of adrenaline is it makes you shake. It gives you energy and it gives you strength if you need it. But the side effect is it causes you to shake. So you may be having the shakes, you lose the dexterity in your fingers and your hands, you get numbness. When the blood rushes to your brain, that means your head fills up with blood, so your tongue swells up. And so talking and communicating gets a little bit more difficult. So all this is to say is that when something like this is happening, unless you've trained yourself over long periods of time to deal with these kind of events, your body's going to do these things, and physically it's going to make that very difficult for you to help yourself do things like make phone calls and talk to people on 911. So what we want to do is we want to get you to someone else, someone who's not in this situation, who isn't going through this, so that they are calm and relaxed and they can help you call 911, express and talk to the 911 operator and tell them where they are and what's going on and and that the police or whomever needs to come to help you. Because physically, we're not going to be in a position to really help ourselves a lot at that moment because of what's going on with our bodies. And it's really nothing that we can control. So in your plan, whatever your plan looks like, we always want to make sure part of your plan is getting to other people that can help us. So while you're on your route out in your day-to-day routines, we want to look for those things. If you come home later in the evening, let's say from a work, if you work evening shift and you're coming home later, or even in the wintertime, it might not even be later, but it's dark out. What are those places that we're looking for? What are those cues that there's places with people in them? Maybe it's a house with its lights on. It's a store that we know is open because we're very familiar with our route. So I know that there's a store there that's open till 11 o'clock at night, or maybe it's open 24 hours a day. And if there's a store that's open, well, then that means there's a person in that store. And if there's a person in that store, well, that's somebody that can help me. The same thing with the house with its lights on. Maybe there's someone in that house that can help me. So if I'm going down the sidewalk and I'm looking for a place to go for help, well, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for those places with people. I'm not going to run down an alleyway or try to hide or go into a field because there's no people there. There's no people that can help me. And so I don't want to do that. I want to make sure in my plan that I don't put that into it. I don't put in there that I'm going to go to those places or I'm going to try to hide. Often when we get scared and nervous and something's happening, we think hiding will help us. Well, I'm here to tell you that the safest thing we can do is just to find other people. Even if it's just a car driving down the street. If there's a vehicle moving on a street, that means there's a person in it, and that person can help us. Because we all carry cell phones these days, or at least the vast majority of us in this world have a cell phone. And so if there's a person in a vehicle, likely they have a phone with them and that they can call and help. They might not let you in the car, and they probably won't, but if you can flag them down and get them to stop, and if you can ask them to call for help, they can call for help for you. But we also, because once we're with other people, the likelihood that the person who is trying to harm us will continue, whether there's someone else there, it's really remote. People don't like to get caught. People don't want to continue what they're doing in front of other people. So if we can get to someone else, then chances are the person that's trying to harm us is probably going to leave or run away. And that other person can help us do what we need to do because we're not going to be able to communicate that very well or effectively ourselves. So I hope that makes sense to you, that our ultimate goal in our safety plan, whatever that plan looks for you, our ultimate goal is finding other people that can help us. Okay. So part of having a plan is practicing it. Okay, so we want to be able to practice our plan. And what AJ is going to do at the end of this scenario, at the end of the session of me talking, is she's going to run you through how do we practice our safety plans before something actually happens, so that we're prepared mentally to be able to put our plans into action. Because we can't always practice these safety plans in reality because, you know, not all the time something's happening to us, and we don't we're not set up to practice this stuff. But we can absolutely practice our plans in our minds, and we can visualize them, and AJ is going to walk you through how we do that. So that brings me into our fourth tip, and really the fourth tip actually goes with all the other tips. So the first three that we talked about, the fourth one goes with all of them. So if you can see your screen there, it says, you know, confidence and skills. So we want to make sure that we're confident. When we're talking about our personal safety, one of the best things we can do for ourselves is to be confident. You know, it does take confidence. When you're out there in public and you're out in those unfamiliar places, it takes confidence to lift your head up. It takes confidence to look around you and to maybe make eye contact with people and recognize who's around you and what they're doing. That's not always easy to do. And I recognize that that is not something that's easy, especially when you're in a situation that's not familiar to you. or you're in a situation that's just not that comfortable. But having that confidence, projecting that confidence, remember when we're talking about awareness, well, the people in our surroundings are also being aware, and they're being aware of you and what you're projecting. So we want to have that confidence to be aware, to look around, to recognize what's going on around us. It takes a lot of confidence to be clear with our bottom line. It's easier to think about what our bottom line is and to know what our bottom lines are in our own mind, but it's much more difficult to tell other people what our bottom line is, or to express to them what our bottom line is. And I get that and understand that we're not all comfortable with doing that, but having the confidence to express and be clear with your bottom line is key for you and your safety. Now, again, we tailor this to you and what works for you as an individual. So if verbalizing that clear bottom line is just not something you think you can do, that's okay. There's other ways to express your bottom line without having to verbalize it. And so that goes into your plan. How am I going to do that? And that goes into your confidence, being confident to do that. Now, when someone doesn't listen to your bottom line, it takes a great deal of confidence to put your plan into action, to fix whatever is going on. That takes some confidence. Now, I don't think there's ever been a human being that's ever been on earth that's been confident 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, their whole life. That's just not something that happens. Even the most confident people aren't confident all the time. But we can get that confidence anytime we want. And in situations where we are uncomfortable, we don't want to project that. We don't want to look like we don't have confidence and that we're uncomfortable. So what do? Well, as you can see on your screen, there's that old saying, maybe some of you have heard it before, fake it till you make it. Well, what that means is our minds and our bodies, they work together. Okay, so what we need to do is when our mind is not feeling confident, when you're not feeling comfortable, we need a way to trick our mind and fake it so our mind will then start to believe it. Well, how do we do that? We do that with our posture, with our physical body. You know, if we're sitting down, we sit up tall. If we're standing, we stand up tall. We pull our shoulders back, whether you're sitting or standing. You lift your head up, lift your chin up. You know, often I'll have people do a little practice of this, and this is something we can do right now. I can ask you, all of you, sit up tall in your chair if you're sitting down. Sit up as tall as you can sit. You know, if you're standing, stand as tall as you can stand. Pull your shoulders back and put out your chest. Now, while you're sitting up tall and your chest is pulled back, I want you to look up, and I want you to put a great big smile on your face. I want you to put the biggest smile that you have on your face. And I want you to hold that for a second or two. And while I'm talking, you keep holding that big, strong posture. The shoulders are back, the head is up, and you are smiling. You're smiling as big as you've ever smiled. And now try to feel bad. While you're smiling and while you're sitting up tall, try to feel bad. Well, we can't do it. You can't convince your mind to feel bad when you are sitting up tall and your shoulders are back and your head is up and you've got a smile on your face. You can't actually convince your mind to feel bad because your mind says, well, no, this doesn't work. My body is saying we are happy. My body is saying, I recognize what a smile means. A smile means I'm happy. So I can't feel bad. I mean, my youngest daughter, she smiles when she's nervous, but it looks like confidence. And that's great. I love that. So when she's out and about in public, and if she's nervous and she's got a great big smile on her face, I'm totally fine with that because she looks confident. But our mind and our body work together. So whenever you need, and you can use this in any aspect of your life, whether it's personal safety, maybe it's at work, maybe it's at school, maybe it's at home, whenever you need confidence, when you're not feeling it that day, well, we can get it because we can fake it till we make it. Because once you put your body in a position that it recognizes as confidence, then your mind will go there. You stand up tall or sit up tall, you pull those shoulders back, you make eye contact with people, your mind will say, well, you know what? I didn't think we were confident today. But look at this. We're standing up tall. We're sitting up. Our shoulders are back. We're making eye contact with people. I guess I was wrong. I guess we were wrong. We are confident. And then the longer you hold that and the more confidence that comes in, then the more real it feels. And then guess what? Suddenly you actually feel confident. And you can use that going into an interview for a job or writing a test or whatever you need. Your mind, you can control your mind with your body just as much as your mind can control your body. So we want to make sure when we're practicing our personal safety, we're having our mind and our body work together. So yes, we're not always confident all the time. Even though I teach this stuff, there are times where I'm out in public and I'm not always super comfortable. Like I might be out with my little grandkids and I'm worried, you're always worried about making sure they're safe. And then a group of maybe young people comes up and maybe they make me uncomfortable. Well, I don't want to look that way. I don't want to look like I'm uncomfortable. So I have to project myself as I'm comfortable and I'm confident. And yes, I'm ready to handle and deal with stuff because I don't want to project something else. So, whatever situation we're in, we can find the confidence to be aware. We can find the confidence to be clear with our bottom lines, whatever that clear looks like for you. And we can have the confidence to put our plans into action. And the skills part, well, you just put a skill into your toolbox today with these 4 tips. That's 4 tips to put in your safety toolbox. Those are skills that we just got today. And we never want to stop learning. We never want to stop developing those safety skills. So whether it's taking courses on personal safety, whether it's going online and researching it, whether it's reading a book, or maybe taking a self-defense course, whatever that looks like for you, we want to make sure that you keep developing those skills to keep yourself safe. So just as a very quick wrap up before AJ goes into the scenarios and the visualization, we just want to make sure that remember, tip number 1, be aware, right? We want to be aware of our surroundings and what that looks like and who's around and where am I? What's the address I'm at if I need to call for help? We want to be aware of ourselves and what we're saying to the world with how we are being viewed by the world. Number 2, we want to have a clear bottom line with people. What am I comfortable with? What am I okay with? And I want to be clear with people about that. And then if they don't respect that bottom line, well, what's my plan and how am I going to fix that? And we talked about the confidence here and how that actually, the confidence will go with all of those and how we get that confidence when we need it. So I'm gonna stop now and I'm gonna turn that over to AJ. I hope that was helpful for you and you put 4 new tips into your toolbox. And AJ is gonna lead us into our visualization and maybe a scenario.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to check in with you, Che, if we do have time.
Yeah, I would say, how long is it going to take, AJ?
How about we go with 3 minutes?
Oh, phenomenal. I'll leave it up to attendees. We've got 10, so I think we'll get through it.
Okay, let's just do a quick 3-minute visualization. Now, I do visualizations with my eyes open, but you can close your eyes if you want, because if we are going to really practice what Jeff has given us as these tips today, we will have our eyes open. We won't have eyes closed. So let's begin this scenario by saying that it is an evening. So just getting dark and we are heading to the bus stop to take a bus. We're familiar with this route. We take it regularly to the places that we're going. So before I get to the bus stop, I'm going to make sure that I have my pass ready, or however I'm going to pay. It's already ready. I'm not going to be fumbling in my purse or fumbling in a pocket for something that I need, that I know I'm going to need as soon as I get to where I'm going. So I have it ready and I'm approaching the bus stop. I see the bench is open. And so I'm going to sit on the bench and wait for the bus to come. I sit on the end, and as I'm on the bus, I decide not to use my phone because I want to make sure that I'm aware of who's around me and what and who else might be at that bus stop. So I just leave my phone in my pocket for now. Someone does approach and they sit in the middle of the bench. I recognize this person as an elderly person, not too old, but older than I am. And I see that I make eye contact with them when they sit down, and they sit a little bit kind of toward the middle of the bench, which I probably wouldn't have done. So I'm already wondering, why did they sit there? They say hello. I look them back and I say hello. As the bus approaches, we both stand up, and they get in line behind me, but very close, almost touching, it feels like. And so I move ahead a bit so that I don't feel that they're as close. And once I get on the bus, I sit down. I go a few rows down and then I sit. I see this person, they've gotten on behind me, and they wait a few moments, and then they sit right beside me. This makes me very uncomfortable now because I don't understand why they've sat so close to me, and when there's plenty of other seats. So I don't want to make too big of a deal of it because I've been taught that I should be polite and I should use my manners. But I am going to be very careful now about what happens next. My spidey senses are tingling. I'm going to move slightly farther away toward the window so the person knows that I do not want them to touch me. That's a very clear signal. And I stare out the window because I do not want them to talk to me, but I am not letting my head down, and I am not giving them any cues that I am sinking down into this situation. I am staying upright and ready to go. They sit like that, staring straight ahead, and so I think everything is fine. My bus stop comes, I stand up to get off, and I notice that that person is following me. They are staying kind of a little bit of a distance behind me, but close enough. Now, I know that there's a lot of stories that can go on in my head, like, well, maybe they do just need to come off at this stop. Maybe I am being paranoid and they don't really want to follow me. But I also know my route, and I know that there is a 7-Eleven half a block from where I am right now. And so I walk very confidently towards that 7-Eleven. By the time I get to the 7-Eleven, that person is nowhere to be found. So that is a successful conclusion of visualizing a scenario in my brain of something that I would be doing on a regular basis. I always want to visualize to a successful conclusion where I don't stop the scenario until I am now feeling safe or I have got some kind of help. Okay? So when you're practicing like that, another way to do it is a what if game. What if this happens? What if that happens? Play that out until you get to a successful conclusion. I've gone toward people. I've used the tips that Jeff gave us, and I won't stop until I feel safe. So let's do a question and answer now if we have a little bit of time.
Yeah, thank you, AJ, for leading us through that. And I've been working from home for about a year, but it took me back to my public transit days and just the mindset you get in, which is not a bad thing, but it's that sense of awareness and just making sure that you're not getting too comfortable, even when you're on a route that you use every single day. and so practical. I know a lot of our Horizon residents use transit, and so it's a piece that they can take away and really practice in the day. I just want to say thank you first before we get to the Q&A, AJ and Jeff. I think you led such a great session, and I just loved how you brought the proactive approach to this conversation. It's not necessarily about having items with you or being ready to start a confrontation. It's about being aware and knowing where your exit routes are and who you can go to for help. So thank you so much. Yeah, let's do a Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I wanted to start with one of mine, actually, that I was thinking about. Jeff, you talked a little bit about getting to a safe place and then calling 911. I wondered if you could just speak to the difference between calling 911 and the non-emergency line. Is there a clear-cut way to know which one you should be calling?
Well, I would say that if you're in a situation where you feel like you're physically in danger, call 911. Have 911 called. If you need to get to a place to call 911, or if you're going to call yourself, do that. I'm very familiar with the police and how they respond. And, often we're nervous that, well, if I call 911 and it's not a real emergency, that I'm going to get in trouble or what have you. And that's just not the case. I know that police would much rather you call 911 if you feel like you need to. If you feel like you're physically in danger, then not, and then something does happen where it maybe could have been prevented before it happened. So the non-emergency line is great if you don't need that immediate police response. So I would say anytime you would feel like your physical safety is in jeopardy, then calling 911 is absolutely appropriate.
There's a question here. Is it good to keep a friend on the phone while walking at night?
Absolutely. That's a great part of your plan. As long as that doesn't distract you from being aware of your surroundings and who's around. If it's a very deliberate thing that you're doing intentionally, so that maybe that somebody's around, like in AJ's scenario where maybe you feel like someone's following you and you're talking on the phone to someone, you can even say, yeah, it's kind of weird. I feel like there's this person following me. And say it loud enough that that person can hear you. That's a great part of your plan. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, as long as these things don't distract you from your awareness. Like AJ mentioned, when you're at the bus stop, not sitting there playing in your phone so that you're distracted. Often you'll have people with their headphones in and maybe a toque pulled down over their eyes or a hood up. And, we want to be able to use all our senses when we're out there in public. And there's maybe different times and places where it might be better to listen to the music or better to bury your head in a book or in the phone. But when we're out and we're thinking about our safety, we want to make sure we're using all our senses. So the phone call is a great idea. And I've actually encouraged people to do that when they're walking by themselves and maybe they're feeling like they're a little uncomfortable. Yeah, get on the phone and talk to somebody. That way, anybody who's approaching knows that you're already speaking to someone.
Thank you, Jeff. I do have one more question for you before I get there. I just want to remind our attendees that we have a post-session survey. I'm going to put the link in the chat right now. We'd love your feedback about this session and about Horizon Wellness Week in general, just so we can improve and do better for you. A quick reminder for Horizon residents, if you fill out the survey, you'll be entered into a prize draw. And for this session, it's a $50 grocery gift card. So I encourage you to send us your thoughts, please. And I know we're on day 4 of Horizon Wellness Week. We're almost there, you guys. I hope you've taken away tons this week that's useful and that you'll be able to apply in the coming weeks, months, and years. I just want to remind you that tomorrow's first session is mindfulness as a superpower, and it'll begin at 11 a.m. I believe Moira put the link to our events page in the chat earlier. So if you need a link to that session, that's where you'll want to go, the Horizon website. My last question for you, AJ and Jeff. I think we have some parents in the attendee list. And is there a way to distill what you taught us today into something manageable and doable for children?
Absolutely, there is. These tips can all be used by your kids. One of the things that we want to make sure we do is teach our kids to be aware of their surroundings. You can just use different language that they're able to maybe understand and grasp, but remind them that it's good as they're out there, even with you, or even by themselves. Maybe they're walking to school or what have you, to be aware of where they're at and pay attention to who's around, and then talk to them about, making sure that they're okay with telling people that, this is my bottom line. This is what I'm comfortable doing, or having done or said to me, and making sure that we talk as parents to our children about what the plan is. What are you going to do if you're walking to school or walking home from school, or if you're out at the playground and someone approaches you or something happens? What are you going to do? And we want to talk about that with our kids and make sure that they have those plans in their mind, because with little children, if they don't have a plan, or they don't have a thought of what they're going to do, that's when they may panic or freeze, or that type of thing. So absolutely, this is something you want to share with your kids, with your loved ones. These 4 tips, anybody can use them. Maybe we need to just change the language when we go from an adult to a child, to change that language a bit. One of the things I really want to express to people is, when you're talking to your children, part of their plan, what we said is, you want to find someone that can help you. We want to remember that as adults, that we don't tell our children that people are strangers. We want to express it in a view of, they are someone you don't know. And not all, because the vast majority of people are good people that will help you if you need it. So often what we see with kids is, they've been taught, well, don't talk to strangers. Well, if they need help, who are they going to talk to? So if they get lost, if you're out with them and they get turned around and they get lost, well, if they don't think they're allowed to talk to any strangers, well, how are they going to ask for help, right? Maybe we tell our children, maybe look for a lady with other kids, or maybe look for someone who, is older, and we teach them about listening to their stomach and that little feeling they get. So, if someone isn't giving you the bad feeling and you need help, then ask them for help. Those types of things, I think, are really important as parents that we express to our kids. Sorry, I went on a little bit longer.
No, I super appreciate it. And actually, the bit about not using the term strangers, that's new to me. And I love that, because I think that's something that anyone could take away and apply to any kids that are in their life, not just their own children, right? So wow, you guys, what a great session. I was engaged the whole time, and you really got me thinking about my own personal safety, even though I've been at home the whole time. Like it pays to pay attention and not let your guard down in a bad way, to always be aware, but be positive about what's going to happen. So thank you for an incredible session. Thank you, attendees, for hanging out with us for a few minutes after, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your week.
Take care.
Bye. Stay safe, everyone.